Yeah.
Chili's Chetan Burger.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Arundhati Roy?
Yeah, you like her? Books?
Books. No.
Quickly I added that.
No.
So,
I've never been able to finish them.
really?
No.
Not even a God of Small Things?
No.
Okay. Hey guys, we are live and I'm really sorry about this really long break, but it was summer vacation. I'm sure you guys enjoyed your vacation too, and I'm allowed a vacation.
Of course you are.
It got a bit extended, sorry about that, but we are back in full force and we have Ravi himself with us, so here we go.
Hi guys. It's a pleasure to be on your show, Sonali.
Thank you. You like the book club?
Oh, I love it. In fact, I've been following the book club right from the beginning, and I make it a point to come on all your shows and ask all those questions.
And you ask
without
really
realizing-
good questions.
Yeah, and ask really difficult questions
Yes.
without realizing that I'll one day be sitting on the chair next to you.
Absolutely.
And you will be asking me those difficult questions.
No, I'm not going to ask you any difficult questions, because there are no difficult questions to be asked. They're just wonderful questions that I have for you. But before everything else, I want to know that what do you think of this idea, Sonali's Book Club? Do you have any suggestions for us? Do you want us to do anything?
I think it's a fabulous idea. I'll tell you why it's a fabulous idea. I think this country needs a reading culture. And despite whatever anybody might say, book sales in this country are tanking.
Okay.
People are not reading. And I believe that a generation which does not read is not a cultured generation. Reading defines the culture of the entire generation. So it's upon people like you, upon celebrities like you who read, to take on the cudgels and say, okay, fine, now let me do these things which kind of kindle the interest in people. People start reading, people look at you, you're a role model, people start reading, and I think that will become a bit of a movement.
You know, Ravi, you're making it sound really amazing, and I never thought of book club as, he is making it sound much bigger and greater and so much more valuable than I ever thought it would be.
Look at the
For me, it was more like just starting off with it's a passion. I wanted to get back to reading, and I realized that I was just looking at the easy way out, and literally we're all down to 40 words now, for everything and every opinion.
Yeah.
So I was just looking at going back to the discipline, so to say, of reading, just going back and picking up the book and getting lost in it. But you see, every time you pick up a book and you start getting lost in it, it takes you a little while before you start getting lost in it. Unless, of course, it's a Ravi Subramanian book where it catches you by your throat right from the first page. So unless it's that, you do take that little bit of time to and that's when you kind of keep it away.
Correct.
So somewhere when I started the book club, it was all about getting in there and having this deadline and finishing the book and getting on to the next one. And I'm really enjoying that. So definitely didn't have these ideas, but whatever you're making it sound, you're making us sound really good. So Sonali's Book Club, all of you guys out there, 2 thumbs up. Thank you, Ravi, for those lovely words. Getting onto your book now. Like I said, you take some time to get into a book. But Ravi's book, you're into it. You have to dive into it, and then you're barely coming up to take a breath of air and you're into the deep again. So what is it? How do you do this? How do you achieve it? How do you get these twists and turns, and how do you keep it on edge constantly? Because you're a most calm person. You're not this edgy kind of a person where I know of you. So.
Well, Sonali, when you write a book, the primary motive of writing a book is to entertain, is to make sure that when people read your book.
A lot of people say it is just to be creative and get their thoughts across. But yes, for you it's about entertaining.
For me, it's about entertaining. It's about getting my thoughts out on paper and making sure in the process people get entertained.
Okay.
And when you do that, you have to make sure that the people, once they pick up your book, don't keep it down. I keep saying that, people normally read the book at night before they go to sleep. And when they do that, the battle between dreary eyelids and tired fingers should actually be won by the tired fingers. They should keep moving on and on and on and not let your eyelids droop. And if you manage to accomplish that as a writer, I think you've done it.
Well, you have done it. I couldn't put it down. Once I started it, I had to end it, and I'm sure all our members are going to agree with that. And that's been your forte, this thrill, this chase. I'm going back to the question that I asked you because you've skipped it.
of how I do it.
You as a person, no, as a personality, you're a very calm person.
Correct.
A lovely smile, lovely personality, calm. Where does all this action come from? Where is it inside you, all this action?
Maybe all of that is bottled inside, which comes out in, on paper, but does not come out in real life. I don't know. Maybe that's the story.
Well, it's a great way that it comes out because it entertains us.
It's a nicer way to come out,
it's
right?
It's a lovely way for it to come out. But that also reminds me this thriller and all this bottled up inside you, that this thrills and the chase and the action that comes out. We do this masterclass for young budding writers.
That's
Anand
right.
has been doing it for us.
Correct.
And we will come to a stage where we will be picking up genres. And would you come and do a fantastic thriller masterclass for us?
I would love to do a thriller masterclass.
We've got it recorded
and I have
again.
I have a reason for that. And the reason for that is, I think in this country, people read romance a lot. People read mythology a lot. But people don't read thrillers. And
I'm
also,
guilty.
And also because there are, I think publishers are also guilty. They don't publish too many thrillers these days. Whereas if you go to the West, thrillers are a huge genre in themselves, and they're a huge category. There are tons of thrillers which get written, and they have subcategories. In India, sadly, no. You look at Amazon. Look at Amazon list of top 12 thriller writers. There are 10 international thrillers and 2 Indian thrillers. Why?
But because nobody is really writing those thrillers, and there are not that many plots.
They're not getting the requisite platform to express themselves.
Now, this is which came first, the chicken or the egg? That's the question. Are they really not right? You got the platform. You had a fantastic story to tell. You got the platform. Maybe they don't have that story to tell.
But there's a reason for that. And the rationale for that is that, look, most of the thriller writers today, be it Ashwin, be it me, be it anybody else, most of us wrote our first book in the pre-e-commerce era. We wrote our first books at the time when people walk into the bookstores, browse, probably pick up a book on impulse and walk back home.
But don't you browse on say, like you said, on an Amazon or whatever?
How many people do that? When you go onto an e-commerce site, you know what you want to buy, just buy that and come out of it. You don't really go and see how many new books have come out, what are the new books that get written. Very few people do.
But it's so much fun to do it,
so
even there.
It is fun, but it kind of decreases your discoverability. So you're not able to really figure out who are the new authors who have written new books, what are the kind of new topics which are being discussed or written about, who are the new thriller writers.
You know what? I get some of my most fantastic ideas when I'm in discussion with the authors, and I think I have another idea, and which we should follow up with. And maybe what you're saying, if that is the truth, and which obviously you're saying it with so much conviction, maybe what we should do is do a sort of a section where we will say for new writers, and let's do discoverables. Let's title it discoverables, and let's have members discover and send us various writers.
Correct.
And let's do a section for new writers, so that we can introduce them and we can kind of put them out there.
Maybe rather than have one-on-one, have one with 2 or 3 new writers.
We could do that.
It's a great platform for them.
See, fantastic idea. Look,
you have the platform. You should leverage it and help the new writers emerge.
No, but it would be such a pleasure. I love browsing and discovering new writers. So if that's not happening, I did not think it was not happening. But if you say that, maybe this is another new thing.
People don't go to bookstores these days. I think that's quite tragic, because if they go to bookstores, they will get to see new books. They will sit and browse those books, look at the back of the cover and see what the story is about, and just look at the feel of the book and then probably take it home.
But even on the sites, you can go in and read a bit of the book.
Otherwise, it's not the same.
Okay. But you know what? As long as you're browsing, let's not limit it to just the bookstores. Wherever you're browsing, just browse. Let's discover new authors. Let's take away from...
Make it a point to read new authors. Make it a point to read one new author every quarter, maybe. If you read 4 books a quarter, make it a point to read one new author a quarter.
Okay, we'll try our best. Let's figure out some new authors and let's get into this thing also, and let's take the book club forward. It's a great idea. Thank you, Ravi. We are going to implement it. And we will come to you and we will ask you to suggest some authors also, as I would ask the other members to do.
Any support from my side, happy to give it to you.
I love it. Thank you so much. It's very easy to talk to Ravi. He's a dear friend, and we can chat about anything, and I seem to be able to talk to him about most of the things under on this earth, basically. So we can keep chatting.
Yeah.
Not really. I don't gossip. He does. But anyway, but getting back to your book, where did you get this idea from? You were a banker. You have been a banker. You are into banking. You've done bitcoins. You've done, all that. This is different. It is a thriller, no doubt about it, but it's different. And the Padmanabhaswamy temple, did it not occur to you that there could be dharnas outside your house?
I hope not. And yes, it did occur to me that there could be issues, but probably because of that, I was very careful when I wrote the book. I wrote it very respectfully, and I made sure that I didn't insult the god. I didn't write anything negative. It was a story set in the Padmanabhaswamy temple, but it is not about the Padmanabhaswamy, about the god.
Okay.
A few years back, when I was reading newspaper articles, there was a huge ruckus about $20 billion of wealth being found in the subterranean vaults in the Padmanabhaswamy temple.
Right.
That makes it the richest temple in the world. Forget the richest temple, it makes it the richest religious institution in the world, probably richer than even the Vatican. And then there were 4 constables guarding the entire temple. And I said, what the hell is this? You are relying on fear of God and not fear on law for protecting the temple.
Well, if the fear of God has worked more than fear of law, obviously.
Yeah, it's worked, at least in this temple, it's worked. And then I started thinking about a plot for a heist in the temple. I said, let me write a story about a heist in those walls. Somebody just goes in, steals the
It's just the idea, as soon as you say it, is so exciting.
So I started thinking about those, and I was reading a book called Flawless, which was a book written by a European, a book based in Antwerp, where it's about an actual heist which took place in the Antwerp Diamond District.
Okay.
The Antwerp Diamond District is the most secure square mile on planet Earth.
But isn't that also, there's a huge connection with the Indian Diamond District?
It is. It is, because the book has a huge connection with the Indian Diamond District. But
because I believe there is a connection.
Yes, the bulk of the transactions in Antwerp Diamond District also relate to the Indian diamond trade.
So how much do you know about the diamond trade?
Oh, I read a lot about it. I read about 3-4 books on the diamond trade, about what happens in Antwerp, what happens in India, how the entire trade happens. I spoke to about 5-6 jewelers who earlier operated in Zaveri Bazaar and now have moved to the BKC
So there are a
Diamond
few familiar faces in these characters.
Oh, there are a lot of familiar faces.
So there are people who maybe we could meet, but they're not named like that, maybe.
Yes, there are a lot of real life characters in the book.
Okay.
But having said that, I think the key characters who form the crux of the story have been fictionalized.
Okay.
In the sense, while they are, for example, there is a Maharaja of Travancore, who actually controls the temple in Trivandrum. He's a real life character. But when I talk about Maharaja of Travancore in the book, I don't talk about that Maharaja. I talk about somebody who could have been in that story.
Okay.
And
smartly done.
Well, no comments there. And then I going back to the earlier point in terms of how the story came to my mind, that's when I started reading about what was happening in the temple vaults. There were a lot of stories about money being pilfered, about the wealth being pilfered, about the entire jewelry and the gold and the diamond being looted. There was a industrial standard gold plating machinery found inside the temple. What was the temple doing with the industrial standard gold plating machinery? Nobody knew. And so the amicus curiae appointed by the Supreme Court actually gave a 600-page report to Supreme Court saying these are the things which went wrong in this temple. So I read through the entire report.
You read through the
and I
entire
said, wow,
report.
this is like, this is awesome. So I said, my next book has to be based in this particular plotting, and I shifted the entire plot from a heist to the story that it is today.
It is today, okay.
And then I had to build in a few other alternate plots, subplots to actually tie into the story. And that's how the story of the entire smuggling of antiques from temples in Tamil Nadu, the battle between the BKC diamond bourse and the Zaveri Bazaar Jewelers Union, all that
Plus
comes
the
in.
bomb blast.
Plus
I mean, you've gone all, how did you think of so many things? How did all these twists and turns occur to you?
You have to be an evil mind, I guess.
Are you admitting to having an evil mind?
No, but you know what? When you start reading all these things and you start thinking differently about all these, then you start imagining and saying, okay, fine, this forms an interesting plot for a book. So you keep observing those instances. When you talk to people you keep picking up plot lines from them, keep picking up thoughts in terms of what could go into a book. And I keep saying this, a writer has to have the power of observation more than the power of creativity and writing. He has to be a wonderful observer. And once you do that, and once you have a huge repository of thoughts to pick and choose from, then you are set.
Yeah, yeah. Superb. So that's where it started from. Any questions? We have a lot of questions coming in. Let's take a look at a few of these questions. So, what is Danish Baghdadi saying? Let me look at this. Sorry. Guys, I'm still battling with my technology. I'm getting there, but... Yes, sorry about the long vacation. Okay, Danish thinks that your characters suffer because of the fast pace.
That's a fair point. I think what happens typically in a plot is that in a thriller, it's always a balancing act between characters and the characterization and plot. More often than not, my writing style is very, very plot focused.
Yeah.
I don't spend too much time developing a character because for me, plot takes precedence. That's the way I write.
Okay.
So, and when you write a book, there's no right or wrong in this. It's just that when you as a reader, what you prefer, there are some readers who prefer a character being developed intensely.
Correct.
There are some readers who prefer the plot to kind of go at a breakneck speed. For me,
you prefer the speed.
I prefer the speed. And sometimes I feel that developing a character in one single book and kind of describing the scenery, describing the backdrop, takes a lot of time and often takes off the pace.
Okay.
That's why if you read my books, characters who repeat themselves in multiple books are very well developed. For example, Kabir Khan, who's the chief investigator in this book, who's a CBI additional director, this is the third book he comes in, and he's developed very well in this book. But there are other characters who kind of fall off the wayside.
Correct.
But I think that's a writing style. He's got a point. He's got a fair point.
Okay, Danish, he agrees with you, and that's his writing style, he says. But so what I also want to know, leading from that, is Kabir going to come in again in your next book?
Till I wrote this book, when I wrote this book, I was not too sure. But now, looking at the feedback, Kabir Khan is the most loved character in the book.
He is.
And so I would probably bring him back. Yeah, I would probably bring him back in the next book.
Yeah?
And I'll bring him back and also bring Pallavi back.
Okay. Interesting. Saurav says, does transition of readers from paperback to Kindle seem a threat to authors?
It is not a threat to established authors. It is a bit of an issue for new authors, forcing them to rethink their strategies for marketing and promoting the books. So they have to figure out a new way to reach out to newer audiences and tell them that, hey guys, I've written a book. Okay. So that's a challenge. If they're able to get there, then I think...
But Ravi, with social media, with the whole digital thing, there are so many ways to reach out. You just have to think differently.
Social media is not cheap.
It's not.
Today, for example, if you have to reach out to people on Facebook, you will have to promote your post. How many people who are starting off on the journey of writing have that much of money, ability to spend? Today, huge brands spend on Facebook. So where do you stand compared to those brands?
Okay, we are doing this. It's new authors, definitely discoverables is something we are going into. All the questions lead to it. I think it's time for it. And we are going to take this very seriously, and I am going to do this on Sonali's book club. Saurav Sharma is asking, would you lend your story if it is to be made into a movie?
Of course.
Yeah?
Talk to me tomorrow morning.
So Saurav, do you have any idea which of the books would you like turned into a movie? Let's come on, write into us and tell us which one would you like to see as a movie. What's your favorite backdrop for thrillers?
See, when you look at thrillers based overseas, you find that a serene setting, a quiet setting in a village, a dark setting, lonely setting is a great backdrop for a thriller. In India, it's not the case, right? In India, a city forms a beautiful backdrop for a thriller because of the anonymity it lends to you.
Absolutely.
For example, if you want to base a thriller in Bombay, it's as good as setting it up basing it in a village with population of 500 people in maybe US. Because in India, in the midst of 500,000 people, nobody will bother what you're doing. So it lends you that kind of an anonymity that establishes crime as an important element in the society. So for me, most of my books are in the backdrop of a city, and I love that.
Okay.
And I'm comfortable with that. I know that backdrop, so it's easy to write in that backdrop.
Yeah, and fair enough. Shrishti wants to know of all the characters in the name of God, which is your favorite. Can I say Kabir, or is there somebody else?
Yeah, Kabir Khan would be my favorite character.
Yeah, I thought as much. So Anshul loved the book.
And having said that, I think I also created Shreyasi Sinha with a fair bit of intensity.
You did, yes.
Yeah,
yes,
and I took a fair bit of effort in developing that character and kind of writing about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, among the men it's Kabir, among the women it's Shreyasi. Yeah.
Okay. You've got your answer. Anshul says that he loved this book and loved the way so many characters and incidents were beautifully introduced, so many characters nicely explained. I'm glad you like the characters.
Thank you.
Somebody else was just saying that they wanted the characters more developed. So see,
so that's exactly
here
my
it is,
point.
two different views right in front of you.
So there's no right or wrong in this because different people read the same thing and make different assumptions and kind of come to different conclusions.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, city backdrop and character or pace. I think he's answered that question.
Clearly pace.
That it is pace that is more important than the character. So how long do you think it took for you to research this book?
This book took me end to end about 2.5 years. And that's the longest it's taken me for any book. Simply because it took me a fair bit of reading. It took me a couple of visits to the temple, a couple of interactions with the locals in Trivandrum, trying to understand the politics.
I want to ask you something else. Couple of visits to the temple, you said. What did you feel when you went to the temple? You were writing all about the wealth there, and you definitely, as you said, you at no point are being offensive about the God, and you've written it in a very positive way. But how did the God actually affect you?
Didn't. The visits to the temple, we all see, when we do research, including the visit to the temple, a lot of it is done not only to figure out what to write, but also figure out what not to write.
Are you a believer?
I'm a believer. I'm a God-fearing person. I believe in God. I'm not a very spiritual person, but yes, I do say my morning prayers.
But that's religion. How do you know if you're a spiritual person or not?
I'm not a spiritual person.
I think I would disagree with that.
Why do you say that?
I think you are spiritual because I think spiritual, everybody has an idea of spirituality, which is very kind of bookish and very fixed. But I think spiritual is something where is much more encompassing, and it's something about how you react, how you think about certain things, and how you go about your day-to-day life. How much of compassion you have, how much do you care about people? And
okay,
I think
that's the definition of spirituality, then probably yes, I am spiritual.
Of course, I think you are. So that's what I would say that. So tell me, sort of in short, not too long, but what was the process of writing this book? Because I read an interview of yours where you said that you didn't know who the killer was till like so what was this so what is this process where you didn't know the killer?
See, let me explain to you how I wrote this book. When I was doing the research for this book, there were a lot of things which came up. One of them was the fact that the local people led by the king in Trivandrum didn't want the second vault to be opened. Okay. Supreme Court had ordered all the vaults to be opened and valued. So the king came up with an idea that let's do something called Deva Prashnam, which is asking the Lord,
can we open it?
Can you open it? And the God gives an answer through a elaborate process. A few days before the Deva Prashnam was held, an auto rickshaw driver's body was found in the temple pond. Okay. Now that was quoted as one of the reasons which said that God's will was not to open that particular vault. Okay. So something fishy there, and that entire episode got brushed under the carpet.
Right.
So you go and talk to the locals, they will tell you about it, but you Google, you will not find too many references. You'll find a few references, but nothing. Okay.
It's been sanitized.
It's been sanitized. Looks like it's been sanitized. So when I started writing, the first chapter was, how the body was actually found in the temple, in temple pond. That's the first chapter from which it starts. So I just wrote that first chapter without knowing how I will take it forward.
Okay.
So I wrote the chapter, and then I wrote the chapter explaining the king and the temple and the history, and then I wrote the next chapter, which was about the case and about how a guy is fighting the case in the Supreme Court, etc., etc. That's how I built it. And then I had multiple plots in the book. So the second chapter which I wrote actually was about a heist in the Wafi Mall,
Right.
which is again a true story, which actually happened. It happened the way I've described here, or I've described it the way it actually happened.
Okay.
And so it's like I built it from chapter to chapter, and then as I went along, I kind of kept joining the dots and saying, okay, fine, let's do this. And at every stage, at every chapter, I would take a very shocking stance. So if you reach the end of the chapter, you would have 3 different ways to go ahead, right?
Yeah.
And I would say, okay, fine, this is what people would expect, this is what people would expect, this is what people would expect, throw them out of the window. Let's look at the 4th, which people will not expect.
Right.
And then that's how you keep asking the question and keep building a question at the end of every chapter. And you go on and on. 90% of the book, I had no clue who the guy is going to be.
So who else could have been the killer?
The king could have been the killer. Okay, sorry, we'll be giving it out if you actually say who could have been the killer.
Yeah, that's true actually. But we've all read it, and that's why we're discussing
okay, so
it.
the king could have been the killer. All the jewelers could have been the killer. Subhash could have been the killer. The two women in the story could have been killers.
Yeah.
Aditya could have been the killer. Anybody could have been the killer.
Anybody could have been the killer. Really, that's
so for
true.
me, which essentially means that if I didn't know at 90% of the book who the killer was going to be, some hope in hell that the reader would know who the killer was going to be.
Yeah.
So after that, then it's like, that's the beauty. At every stage in the book, the reader knows as much as I knew when I was writing that page.
Fantastic. Is this how you write all your books, or was this book different?
No, I typically write, this is the way I write all my books. I have tried plotting from end to end. There are a lot of other Indian authors who actually do that, and they do that brilliantly. I have tried plotting, but it's never worked for me.
So this is the way it works for you.
This is the way it works for me.
So
and
basically, as a writer, you need to find your own way of how it works for you.
Absolutely.
But this is fantastic.
If you're a new author who cannot figure out a way ahead, I would say this is not the best way to write, because it kind of doesn't give you a confidence when you're writing the first book. But in the first book,
in your first book, what did
you're
you do?
better off thinking.
Did you plot your first book?
See, my first book was a lot inspired by a lot of incidents that I had seen.
Okay.
So by and large, had a huge repository of instances which I could put in. So for me, going from one chapter to the other was not too difficult.
Okay.
And I knew somewhere the common thread which would kind of hold them together.
Okay.
So it was reasonably easy. But after that, no. All my thrillers have actually been written exactly in this manner.
It's fantastic. I can't believe it. It's amazing. Can you imagine? We know as much as he knew when he was writing. It's fabulous. So is there any way that you might change your genre? Or do you really enjoy this genre a lot?
See, I was an accidental thriller writer, in the sense that my first book was not a thriller. My first book was a story. And it was a beautiful story about people in a bank. Somewhere down the line, my 3rd or the 4th book, I had multiple killings and a reveal in the end.
Okay.
So it started getting categorized as thrillers, and I started getting pushed in that genre by the publishers, by the reading public.
So do you want to break that?
So I broke that with my previous book, which was the bestseller she wrote.
Yes, actually, that's true.
And so I moved out of the genre and wrote a romantic thriller. You can call it a romantic thriller. You can call it a romance.
It had its pace and it had its
And with this book, I moved completely out of the banking genre.
Yes,
this book is the first mainstream thriller that I have ever written. My next book is going to be a children's book. So for me, I will write what I like to write. I will write something which comes to mind. I've reached a stage, I'm very thankful to the readers that have actually taken me to the stage where I'm very happy that I've kind of accomplished 10 books, and now I would want to write newer things, experiment newer things, write more difficult subjects. For example, I think writing for children is like chaos. It's like completely difficult. I once went for a talk in a school with 200 students, and God, nobody could listen to you. You sit in an audience of 200, adults, you can actually hold them engaged.
Yeah.
But 200 children, it was complete chaos. And
so
that's
how is
when
that
I
book
realized.
going then, the one that you're writing now?
It's done. It should come out in October and or early November.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like completely done?
It's completely done.
What after that then? Because you're obviously done with it.
The next one would be again a thriller.
Aha,
okay.
Good news.
And that should hopefully come sometime next year.
That's pretty fast, no?
I've been working on it for some time now. So it should hopefully come out next year. So I normally write a book a year. This one took some time in coming. In the Name of God took 2.5 years.
How do you do it? How do you do it? You have a day job.
Yep.
And you love it.
Correct.
From the conversation I've had and what I know, he loves the job. You don't want to give that job up.
Correct. I will never give
whatever
it up,
I've heard from you always.
Yeah.
So where do you find the time? How do you do it? You're obviously good at your job, and you're good at writing. So where do these two meet?
So now it just boils down to one word, which is prioritizing.
Okay.
You know, for me, as long as you love to do something, you'll always find time for doing it.
I thought men
It's
were not
just-
multitaskers. How did you do it?
It proves the fact that men are not multitaskers is incorrect. Men are as good a multitasker as women. It's just that they don't get the credit for it.
Oh.
But yeah, I kind of come in early, I leave early. So I don't socialize too much. I don't go out for drinking binges with friends too much. So for me, evenings are at home. I write from 9 to 1.
It's like a discipline. That's your time, and you sit
When I'm
down.
writing, I write from 9 to 1, 1:30 if I'm in the flow, even 2:30, because the way I write, when I'm in the flow, the story keeps coming and you keep writing. So you don't want to stop and let go of that flow. So, I don't require too much of sleep. I sleep for about 5 hours a night. So for me, that's good enough.
Fantastic.
And I do let go of a lot of things. I don't watch TV too much. As I said, I don't socialize with friends. It's very simple, Sonali. You know, if I wanted to give you a management jargon, to follow your passion, you need the 25th hour. And the 25th hour has to come in from the 24 hours in a day.
Right.
So you will have to drop something off the list to get this in.
Fabulous.
What you drop off depends on who you are and what you
choose
value.
to do. Yeah.
But for example, I never let go of Saturday, Sunday morning coffees with family.
Yeah.
Okay, so we spend a couple of hours just going out on a Saturday and Sunday morning and having coffee in the various coffee shops in Bandra. But things like those I don't compromise on. But yeah, on other things which are more personal oriented, I kind of drop them and then write.
Your daughter Anusha is a writer too.
Yes.
And very young writer, published writer, and done really well the book. What would you have to say to her?
I would say to her that one, keep your feet firmly on the ground. There will be a lot of people who will say very good things about you. There will be a lot of people who will say very bad things about
She's
you.
a very grounded girl.
Yeah. So she's grounded right now, but you know she needs to stay that way.
You're just being a dad.
And two is don't give it up. Because sometimes I've seen that people when they get things too early in life, they kind of let go as they grow up. I think she writes fabulously. She writes much better than me.
Why do you say that?
To the gentleman who asked the first question, her characterization is far more superior to mine, and she
gives it more time.
Yeah.
That's the kind of writing she does.
Yes.
That's what I would say.
She's a very traditional writer in that sense, and she doesn't let go till she's happy. If I'm not happy with certain parts, I let go and let the editor take over. But she doesn't do that. Okay. And I think for her, that will hold her in good stead as she grows up.
Yeah. In Ravi Subramanian's house, 2 authors. What does the wife do?
Poor wife. I think you know it's very difficult to be married to an author because authors typically tend to kind of be lonely creatures when they are writing.
It's
you know?
a little creative kind of.
Yeah. So it's and the wife has to put up with a fair bit of idiosyncrasies, fair bit of frustrations at times, and I think Dharani has stood by me. So I'm really thankful to her. I've not told her this, but yeah, I'm extremely thankful to you for being my biggest critique, for being my the reader of my first draft.
Okay.
The first reader of my first draft. This time I had 2. Dharani and Anusha both read my first draft.
Okay.
But normally it's Dharani who reads it. So yeah, it's very difficult to be a spouse of an author, and she's kind of.
So do you discuss it over this coffees on Saturday and Sunday? Do you discuss the ideas? Maybe someday. Maybe Ravi Subramanian also must be getting stuck at some point.
Oh, many times. Many times.
Is she a sounding board?
I do discuss with her and Anusha the story, the plot lines, and when I'm stuck, I do ask them some questions. In fact, in Bankster, a couple of plot twists came from Anusha when she was,
Really?
that was 4 years back. She was 12 at that time, 12 and a half, 13 at that time. And a couple of twists came from her, and I said, wow. And it's, with Dharmi, it's more in terms of reassurances, in terms of, will this book do well? You know, are there things which I should have done which I have not done yet? Have done enough in life? You know, things like those. And she constantly keeps reassuring, saying, look, you've done well in life. You've got 9 books behind you. You've, you know, you're a father of such a fabulous daughter. So,
oh my
so
God,
it's like
I love
you've got a lovely
it.
family.
That's so romantic.
So what else do you want in life? So it's like, yeah. So she's been a constant support and strength for me.
Fab. Do we have any more questions? Because as you can see, he's in his suit ready to, we've dragged him away. But I think we are going to encourage our members to keep writing to us, and if there are some more interesting questions, we will still keep asking you, and we will get back. And looking forward to your next book, which is a children's book, but I will enjoy reading it.
Yes.
And the book after that. And yes, do you think you're ready to rest a little bit on the success of this book, in the name of God? Because it is a success, and so.
It's doing quite well. It's been 8 weeks, and
Yes.
it's been on the Nielsen top 10 right from the beginning. And I think it's been received well. The feedback is pretty good.
Yes, it is. It's been enjoyed by everybody.
But I guess it's also the subject, the topic is very intriguing. And I guess, as in sales, they say that you're only as good as your last month. As an author, you're only good as your last book. So if my next book has to do, probably if not as much as this, probably better than this. And
I don't think that's fair. You're writing a different kind of book.
I will be happy if what's happened in my journey. And the last point is that, Sonali, that every single book of mine has been better than the previous ones.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of feedback that I've got. And to me, every book is a journey for me as well. Is a revelation, is a learning for me as well. So as long as that continues,
you're happy.
I'll be happy.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
On that note,
thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Here we are. And yes, just a reminder, he did promise us he is going to do a masterclass with us. And another reminder, we are going to look into your idea, and we are going to look into new authors.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely something that as Sonali's book club, we are going to take up on it. Thank
Wonderful.
you for that suggestion.
Wonderful.
We are going to look onto that. Bye,
Thanks,
guys. Thank you so much. Sorry for that long vacation. There's never going to be such a long break ever again. I promise you that. But I did enjoy the vacation. So see you soon, and keep the feedback coming.
Thank you, guys.